know I can honestly say this, that he's intimidated. As Scott said, I published a book on early Mormon pamphleteering in Great Britain, 1837-1860. When I talked with them about presentation, we discussed the idea of kind of relating some of the themes and imagery of early Mormon, early anti-Mormon literature to what we have today. And so that is the emphasis of my paper. I've titled the paper, Old Themes and Stereotypes Never Die, The Unchanging Ways of Anti-Mormons. Now what you're going to be hearing today is about half of what my paper is. The old thing where you keep writing and all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, there's no way that I'm going to be able to fit it into the time period. Well, that's what happened. And so eventually Fair will have the full text available. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. A writer once said, if you can't annoy somebody, there's little point in writing. Now, while obviously tongue-in-cheek, this statement nonetheless delivers a powerful message concerning the importance of the printed word. In modern technical societies, the art of communication and dissemination of knowledge are of extreme importance. These are enhanced through the circulation of various ideas, concepts, and beliefs. Without the publication of such, it would be extremely difficult to communicate new ideas and beliefs to a large population. While oral traditions and other forms of verbal communication have existed among the inhabitants of the world since time immemorial, the power of the written and printed word cannot be underestimated. This is particularly true with religion. Both apologists of a religious movement and its adversaries are responsible for producing large amounts of published materials. As an example, the conflict between believers and antagonists and the voluminous products of such religious turmoil, one needs to look no further than the mountains of material containing attacks and counterattacks between Catholics and Protestants. Perhaps the best-known anti-Catholic work of the 19th century was Maria Monk's Awful Disclosures of the Hotel Dieu Nunnery, which was published in 1836 in New York City. The tract launched a flourishing genre of works detailing the purported immorality of Catholic priests and nuns. Among the anti-Catholic tracts printed on the European side of the Atlantic were The Adventure of Isabella with a Friar who debauched her before an altar at 13 years old, and The Cloisters Laid Open. However, sensational and titillating polemics were not published only against Catholics. The Female Husband, published in 1746, portrayed Methodists as, quote, hypocritical perverts keen on lesbian and homosexual activities, end quote, while the New Bath Guilds, published in 1766, ridiculed a, quote, fornicating Methodist preacher, end quote. Indeed, a number of the religious denominations, which varied from the accepted mainstream denominations, were the targets of polemical writers. Today, the publication of literature against Catholics, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and just about every other religion and denomination continues. For instance, modern anti-Catholic attacks, which involve not only traditional print media, but also the internet, film, and television, include the same insinuations of illicit sexual relations between priests and nuns, as well as priests and their parishioners. A good example is the British film The Magdalene Sisters, which just came out in 2003. It bases the plot on the actual Magdalene laundries, which were run by the Sisters of Mercy for girls who were regarded as sinners and had to do penance. However, while the film is not based on any real girls, it portrays the characters as real, including little epilogues at the end of the film, explaining what happened to them in their later lives. The film includes cruelty by the nuns against the girls, a seducing priest, and female nudity in what one Catholic apologist compared to the adventures of Maria Monk. Catholics are not the only religious adherents to be accused of improper activity or be described with sensational imagery and stereotypes. Among the numerous victims of attack are Pentecostals, who are described in some sources as sex-crazed. Even Christians in general are depicted in cliched stereotypes as judgmental, narrow-minded, determined to spoil a party, and fanatical. Stereotyping is a natural function of the human mind to simplify a complex reality. Quote, a stereotype is a standardized conception or image of a specific group, or people, or objects, end quote. In other words, stereotypes are mental cookie cutters. However, stereotypes are also used to introduce or reinforce negative attitudes about a group of people based on characteristics such as age, sex, race, nationality, or religion, like the examples already given for the Catholic and other Christian churches. The same is true with Mormonism. As numerous as the attacks against Mormonism are the various themes and arguments used by anti-Mormon writers, as with any other genre of literature, anti-Mormon writers write with their audience in mind. They select the themes which they think will be the most entertaining, or believable, or influential, and ultimately persuasive in regard to their message. With these themes come tried and true images and stereotypes. This paper will look at anti-Mormon themes and how they have and have not changed from the 1800s to the present. While anti-Mormons have used many themes and images, this paper will focus on only two interrelated themes. First, denigrating the character of Joseph Smith, and second, accusations of immorality of Mormons and Mormonism. Obviously, a person could write a book about each of these categories, therefore the examples will be limited for time and space purposes. Mormonism Unveiled, published in 1834 by Eber D. Howe, was, quote, the genesis of many later anti-Mormon works, end quote. The book itself was, in large measure, a compilation of affidavits and stories collected by Dr. Velasquez Hurlbut, a former member of the church. This book laid the foundation of future anti-Mormon works as it introduced the themes and methods of attack used by many future anti-Mormon publications. The Smiths were described as being, quote, lazy, indolent, ignorant, and superstitious, end quote. Joseph Smith and his family were also described as being involved in money digging and folk magic, and Joseph's use of a seer stone was also discussed. Other anti-Mormon writers have used Howe's arguments and accusations. For example, the first known anti-Mormon pamphlet published in Great Britain included a large portion of material taken from Howe's book. Indeed, the theme of the Reverend Richard Livesey's tract was the questionable character of Joseph Smith and his family and their involvement in money digging. Livesey accused the Smith family of being known fortune tellers and described how they used certain arts of juggling to find treasure. The Reverend Samuel Haney stated that not since the days of Muhammad had there been a more awful delusion to mislead men. According to Haney, Joseph Smith's character had been evil from the very beginning. An American writer even went as far as to suggest the whole Smith family, quote, were unqualified atheists, end quote. The evil character of Joseph and other members of the Smith family was also a theme expounded upon by William Palmer in his tract, The External Evidences of the Book of Mormon. He began by stating that Joseph Smith was, quote, a sorcerer, a liar, an impostor, a vagabond, a swindler, end quote. As an example of the evil character of Smith and his followers, Palmer portrayed the men as a group of necromancers. He related how Smith used a peepstone to look for buried treasure that was guarded by evil spirits. He described how Joseph Smith had sacrificed a goat in order to get past the evil spirits. However, according to Palmer, quote, the devil took his money and the Smiths ate his mutton, end quote. The picture here is from Howe's book, and it's obviously you can see the devil is getting the best of Joseph Smith.